What can you get for $2 trillion a year? Here are two choices. See if you can guess which one the world is currently getting. Choice number 1. In this choice, we get a massive campaign of green energy and transitions to sustainable practices in wealthy and poor countries alike. We make clean water and food and housing and education rights rather than privileges. College debt is unheard of. Wealthy countries providing schools and medicines everywhere are beloved rather than hated by poor countries, and at the same time provide much better services to their own people, and at the same time cut taxes for working people and reduce government expenses. Amazing, right? This only sounds like magic until you hear choice number 2. In choice number 2, we dump $2 trillion every year into the most wasteful and economically detrimental spending ever devised. We kill many thousands of women, men, grandparents, children, and infants, directly and indirectly. We injure far greater numbers. We traumatize still larger numbers and turn many more into refugees. We destroy the natural environment more efficiently than through any other enterprise. We create a justification for government secrecy and the erosion of civil liberties. We set an example of violence that spreads into all corners of our culture, and we make ourselves ever more hated and endangered through never-ending efforts to make ourselves safe. Okay, it's time for the $2 trillion question. Which choice are we currently making? If you guessed choice number 2, you were right. Tell them what they've won, Johnny. You have won the insight that will make you part of a movement called World Beyond War, that will move this world beyond war and into a just and sustainable peace. At worldbeyondwar.org, you'll find documentation of everything mentioned in this video and much more. The world really does spend about $2 trillion every year on war and preparation for war. The vast majority of it is on the preparation for war, or what we think of as standard military spending. The United States spends about half the total, or $1 trillion every year, which is also about half of the U.S. government's total discretionary budget. NATO nations together account for about 3/4 of the $2 trillion. While choice number 2, war spending, kills and injures large numbers of people, those numbers are dwarfed by the numbers of lives that would be saved and improved by transitioning to choice number 1, peace spending. What was it that former U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower said? Oh yeah.
The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities.
It is 2 electric power plants, each serving a town of 60,000 population. It is 2 fine, fully equipped hospitals.
We pay for a single fighter plane with 500,000 bushels of wheat.
We pay for a single destroyer with new homes that could have housed more than 8,000 people.
This is not a way of life at all, in any true sense. Under the cloud of threatening war, it is humanity hanging from a cross of iron.
The United States provides about $23 billion in foreign aid. That could be doubled, tripled, quadrupled, just scratching the surface of military spending. For some $41 billion, starvation and hunger and the lack of clean water could be things of the past. And in combination with ending the wars and closing the bases, bringing U.S. troops home from the 177 out of 196 nations they now occupy, the very idea of an anti-American terrorist network would become as laughable as an anti-Swiss or anti-Canadian terrorist network. State college tuition in the United States could be covered for $12.4 billion. The U.S. Department of Education spends $70 billion. Why not take another $70 billion and give it to local schools all over the country? It's not as if we don't have the money. Economists have found that the same dollars spent on education or infrastructure or even tax cuts for ordinary people produce more jobs and better paying jobs than military spending. Why not cut taxes and invest in a program of transition that retrains and retools and converts our primary public focus from a mad rush to kill people into an urgent effort to preserve a livable atmosphere, soil, and the oceans of this planet? Not only do we need the $2 trillion a year to address real crises instead of manufactured ones, but the military is itself the biggest consumer of petroleum and biggest poisoner of land and water we have. War is not good for children or other living things. That includes the non-human species we usually leave out of our considerations. Peace is part of the only path to sustainability. What was it that Jeanette Rankin said? Oh yeah, she said, "You can no more win a war than you can win an earthquake." And of course, no matter how many times we say the wars are for freedom, we always end up with fewer freedoms by the end of the wars. There's really no upside to war, and we don't need war to protect us. For one thing, most of the weapons in most modern militaries are not defensive. While still thinking as a militarist, one could claim that a Coast Guard and Border Patrol and anti-aircraft weapons are defensive. But that can't justify aircraft carriers and bombers and tanks and nuclear missiles and bases in other countries and drones in other skies. A defensive Defense Department would be reduced by perhaps 90%. But in fact, studies over the past century have found that nonviolent tools are more effective in resisting tyranny and oppression and resolving conflicts and achieving security than violence is. A combination of nonviolent activism, law enforcement, fairness, justice, crisis prevention, and yes, a bit of friendship and generosity and trust render war as archaic as dueling, as a tool for settling disputes. This is really our only way forward. What was it that Martin Luther King Jr. said? Oh yeah.
A true revolution of values will lay hand on the world order and say of war, this way of settling differences is not just. This business of burning human beings with napalm, filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate, sending men home from dark and bloody battlefields, physically handicapped and psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death.
War is not needed in order to maintain our lifestyle, as the saying goes, and wouldn't that be reprehensible if it were true? The earth has no shortage of sunlight or wind. Our lifestyles can be improved with less destruction and less consumption. Our energy needs must be met in sustainable ways, or we will destroy ourselves, with or without war. That's what's meant by unsustainable. So why continue an institution of mass killing in order to prolong the use of exploitative behaviors that will ruin the earth if war doesn't do it first? Why risk the proliferation of nuclear and other catastrophic weapons in order to continue devastating impacts on the Earth's climate and ecosystems? War is not needed to prevent something worse. There is nothing worse. War is not a cure for genocide. War is genocide's cousin, its provoker, and its partner in death. Humanity is crying out for an end to humanitarian wars that kill, maim, and ruin. Nations left in chaos by crusades of nation-building have had all the help they can take from bullets and bombs. We don't try to distinguish just from unjust slavery, good from bad child abuse. Why do we engage in such perverse calculations when it comes to war? Well, most of us don't. Most of us are ready to move to a world beyond war. There was something else Eisenhower said. He said, "I like to believe that people in the long run are going to do more to promote peace than our governments. Indeed, I think that people want peace so much that one of these days governments had better get out of the way and let them have it." Now there is an idea whose time has finally come. Please take a moment to go to worldbeyondwar.org and sign your name as an individual or an organization to this declaration of peace. I understand that wars and militarism make us less safe rather than protect us, that they kill, injure, and traumatize adults, children, and infants, severely damage the natural environment, erode civil liberties, and drain our economies, siphoning resources from life-affirming activities. I commit to engage in and support nonviolent efforts to end all war and preparations for war, and to create a sustainable and just peace. At worldbeyondwar.org, you'll find many other ways to become involved and advance this movement. Remember what Victor Hugo said: all the forces in the world are not so powerful as an idea whose time has come.